Grapes are not gathered from thorns or figs from thistles, are they? In the same way, every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree is not able to bear bad fruit, nor a bad tree to bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then, you will recognize them by their fruit. Matthew 7:16-20, the New English Translation. Welcome to stage 2 of the Phoenix 90, where you will imagine and define your own crystal clear visions of heaven and hell, and you will prioritize your most valued and magnetic goals. If a lack of motivation or an inclination to procrastination are things that you usually struggle with, then this stage is going to catapult you through your previous limitations and allow you to finally enjoy the fruits of the good life. I want you to imagine a tree. It's a good-sized tree with a pretty solid trunk, and it's well filled out with leaves. The conditions this year have been their normal mix of good and bad. Some hard days and some not so hard days. A good amount of water at times, sometimes too much, and at other times dry spells where water was scarce. Some days the sky was clear and the sun shined brightly, and other days the clouds were so thick that it was almost dark, and the wind howled through the branches of the trees. The normal mix of hardship and opportunity, ease and dis-ease. The tree has just come into fruit, but again, this year's harvest is sparse, and the few fruits that have come through are dry and tasteless. Lots of the other trees around this one have had wonderful harvests in the exact same weather conditions. You decide to get a specialist to come and have a look at the tree and see what the problem is. And they tell you that it's the roots of the tree that are stopping it from being able to bear good fruit. Of course, you say, it can be no other way. It's those roots underneath the surface that are creating those fruits out here in the air. The fruits of the good life that you want to enjoy are created by the roots that are underneath the surface. It is what's unseen that creates what's seen. Recall the passage from Matthew 7. Grapes are not gathered from thorns, nor figs from thistles. Juicy, sweet fruits can only come from well-nourished and deeply rooted plants. Your inner world is the root system and the soil from which your life grows. If it is depleted or poisoned, it is unlikely to yield the fruits that you desire. Similarly, when you are filled with a lack of clarity or self-doubt, you cannot thrive in the best way that you are capable. Stage 2 of the Phoenix 90 is about clarifying the exact kind of fruits that you want to bear. As a tree specialist would tell you, for you to be able to give your tree the best nutrients and care, you need to know exactly what kind of fruits you'd like to harvest. It's about identifying what truly nourishes your spirit and gives you a deep sense of purpose, and then making these things the bedrock for which your future to grow and thrive. So for the first exercise in stage 2, you are going to start by clarifying and identifying the things in your life that you don't want. This is often the easiest place to start, and once you have defined what you don't want, you can start looking at what you do want. But for now, start on a new page or a document, and at the top write, I will not settle for, and start listing all the things that you do not want for yourself. In the example of the tree, you might tell the tree specialist, well, for a start, I don't want fruits that go off too quickly and don't last very long. Next, I don't want fruits that taste sweet at the beginning, but then leave a bitter taste in your mouth afterwards. Another thing, I don't want fruits that take 40 years of hard work before I can really enjoy them. Thinking about it, I don't want to have to work really hard to grow these fruits when I don't even like them that much anyway. Do you know what? I actually prefer vegetables. And now we're starting to get into what we do want. You can see maybe how defining all the things we don't want can lead into being able to clearly see what we do want. True and lasting transformation begins by tending to those inner roots. It requires nourishing yourself with what truly matters, your values, your passions, and your callings. When your roots are deep and well-fed, the fruits of success, fulfillment, and joy will emerge naturally in your life, even through the inevitable storms. A hungry rat is placed in the middle of a pipe. On the rat's tail, there is a spring with a measuring device attached to it, which measures how hard the rat pulls on the spring. How hard the rat pulls is how motivated the rat is to move. At the moment, both ends of the pipe are closed off, so the rat isn't very motivated to go anywhere, and it doesn't pull very hard on the spring. The rat is taken out of the environment and after a while is placed back in. But this time, at one end of the pipe in front of the rat, there is a piece of cheese placed there. The rat is really hungry, so it tries pretty hard to get the food, and it pulls on the spring with considerable force. So the rat is now much more motivated to move because it's trying to get the food. Again, the rat is taken out of the pipe and after a while placed back in. But this time, not only is there food at one end of the pipe in front of the rat, but they open the other end behind the rat up and blow in cat odor. Now, rats are biologically wired to be scared of cats from birth. They know what a cat smells like and they are fearful of it. So the rat is now pulling like mad to try and get out of there, not just to try and get the food, but to try and get away from the cat that it thinks is coming for it. The rat now has something to run toward and something to run away from, and is maximally motivated. This scenario helps us to understand the two fundamental motivational processes that we have within us. First, the reward system, which motivates us to act because of inspiration. And second is the fear system. It's fight, flight, freeze, etc., which motivates us to act or freeze because of danger. We all have dreams that we want to get out of life. Some of us may have written those dreams down as goals, and even a smaller amount of us may have turned those dreams and goals into a positive future vision for ourselves, otherwise known as a heaven to strive for, which is an exercise that we're going to be doing later in stage 2. Having this positive outlook gives us a certain amount of motivation to move forward, but sometimes it's just not enough. You still find yourself procrastinating around the things that you know will make a difference. You still find yourself slipping back into habits that you know aren't good to you and you know that don't help you get to your goals. You have something that you feel motivated to run toward, but it isn't enough. You need something to run away from. Otherwise, you'll never take the risk to step out and bet on yourself. The ancient Greeks associated the planets in our solar system with different gods, and they believed that each planet was the ruler of a different emotional state. Sounds crazy, right? Well, listen on. They believed that when you were in one of these emotional states, it's because the god that ruled that emotion had taken control of you. They wouldn't say, "You've gotten angry." Instead, they would say, "Anger has got you." Or in our case, fear has got you. While at first this may seem simple to our modern way of thinking, there is a lot of truth to what they believed, and it's by no means a simple outlook. Unless we harness our fear and make it our servant, it will be our master. When we don't have something to run away from that is in the opposite direction to the vision and goals we have for our life, we are leaving half our motivational firepower unharnessed. We need to have an opposing vision to our positive vision of the future. We need to have an anti-vision, a hell to run away from. If we don't take control of our fear and put it in its proper place, behind us as a warning and something to drive us in a positive direction, then our fear will take control of us and keep us in an endless state of paralysis or tension. So, in this next exercise, you are going to begin to harness your true motivational firepower and create an anti-vision for your life. You've started by defining some of the things that you are no longer going to stand for in your life. Now you're going to look further down the road and project those things into the future. Start by revisiting your values hierarchy from stage 1. Within each of your values that you defined in that exercise, you are going to describe what a future hell would look like in that area of your life 5 years from now. Ask yourself these questions for each of your values. 1. If I don't commit to my own personal growth, don't take any action towards my goals and dreams for the future, and allow self-doubt, fear, and procrastination to take hold of me, what are the dark depths that will lead to? 2. If I just let everything slide and allow my worst tendencies to overtake me, and we all know what our biggest temptations and weaknesses are, and continue to do the things that do not honor the best side of myself, what kind of state will I find myself in? And 3, how would allowing these things to happen affect the people around me? Quick tip, when you are writing this anti-vision, write it in a future tense and describe it with I could be and I would be instead of I am and I have. Without harnessing the power of your own fear and associating it with a hell to run away from, you will most likely automatically associate that fear with the very goals that you want for yourself. You are inspired by your goals, but you're also scared of them. You are motivated to move forward because of inspiration. You are also unable to act because of fear. What if something goes wrong? What if it's dangerous out there? What if people won't accept me when I change? When you define your anti-vision, these fears will pale in comparison to what the real danger is. Never actually stepping out of your comfort zone and taking consistent action for long enough so you can transform into the person that is possible for you to be. Remember that voice that echoes within you saying, you could be more than you are. If there was one single lesson or ability that I could point to as the most revolutionary or impactful thing that I've ever learned, I would say that developing my sight is that very thing. Imagine you're a photographer standing at the edge of a vast landscape. You have 2 lenses to choose from, a wide-angle lens and a telephoto lens. The wide-angle lens captures the panoramic view, taking in the entire scene. But while it shows the broad representation of what is going on in the immediate scene, you can't make out the details in the distance very well. On the other hand, the telephoto lens allows you to look far into the distance and pick out the details that you would have missed with the wide-angle lens. Using this lens allows you to zero in on a specific distant object, like a mountain peak or a distant village, bringing it into sharp focus and revealing its unique features. The telephoto lens also provides a unique perspective on closer objects. It highlights them in sharp contrast against the distant landscape and emphasizes their detail and importance in the depth of the scene. When you only see your life through the wide-angle, low-resolution perspective, you can easily get caught up in the immediate scene of your life. You're focused on the immediate tasks, the fires that you need to put out, the problems right in front of you, and the immediate desires that you are looking to gratify from moment to moment. You are entangled in the present moment urges, seeking endless pleasure, comfort, and safety, failing to see things from a more distant perspective. You fail to notice crucial details that will better inform you in the present. While reacting to the present moment and being present in the moment is necessary and important, at times it is crucial to zoom in and gain a high-resolution telephoto perspective on certain aspects of your life and how they will look in the distance. The telephoto view gives you a glimpse into the future consequences, both good and bad, that stretch out from your life today into the future. When you develop your sight in this way, you'll be able to see potential dangers that lie ahead if you continue on the current path without correction. You'll also be able to see the vast potentials of what your life could be if you harness your power to make proactive choices and put yourself together in the best way that you can. There are two specific ways that you can use your sight or perspective to gain these advantages. First is path plotting, which is envisioning the path ahead and where the various aspects of your life might take you. There might be things in your immediate life that you've been so caught up in the moment with that you failed to see the long-term and distant consequences of. It could be habits you engage in, people you spend time with, or places that you go to. It could simply be a story that you tell yourself consistently over and over again in your head, which is a topic that we're going to be covering very soon. Everything that we think, do, or allow into the scene of our lives affects us and will have a compounding effect over time into the future. So take a closer look at the details of your life. If you are struggling with something now, chances are that thing will consume you further down the road if you don't get a handle on it. So you better get a handle on it. The second technique for doing this is the armchair test. This is seeing your current life situation from a distant future perspective. Instead of viewing your current issues and choices solely through the lens of the present moment, imagine yourself in the future, settled in your armchair, older and wiser, looking back at your life. Would you view the challenges and opportunities that you are currently facing differently? How might your perception of the current situation transform with the wisdom of time? Or for a more emotionally charged effect, imagine yourself on your deathbed in the distant future. What kind of perspective would you have of your life now from that distant vantage point? When it comes to the perspective of our lives, we not only need to see the breadth of the landscape, but we need to see the depth of the landscape and how it stretches out into the distance of our lives. By developing your sight and honing your ability to see where things will lead far into the future, and also to see how you may view things from the far future, you gain the clarity and the ability to make wise choices today. The path might not always be completely clear, but with the ability to intentionally zoom in and out, you will be able to navigate your life with focused attention and precision, and you'll begin to transform and move through the phases of your growth more rapidly than ever before. Before the internet, before the printing press, way before we even had written language, stories have been told to transmit knowledge and values, to warn us and to inspire us. Imagine the flickering firelight illuminating the faces of our ancestors as they're captivated by a tale spun by an elder. Tales of villains and heroes, defeats and victories. Stories weren't just entertainment. They served as unforgettable maps and blueprints for survival, guiding those who were wise enough to heed their warning to a more prosperous future. These stories had the power to shape minds, inspire actions, and determine the course of entire civilizations. Stories are powerful. They resonate with us on a deeper level than facts or figures. Think back to your own childhood. Were you ever more engrossed by a well-told story than by a dry list of facts? Of course you were. Stories engage our emotions, our imagination, and our memory. Information woven into a narrative becomes more relatable, memorable, and ultimately impactful. The stories that we've internalized in this way, both the ones we've learned and the ones that we formulated ourselves from our experiences, influence and dictate the way that we live our lives today. These internal narratives shape how we see the world and our place in it. They influence our beliefs about our abilities, our potential, and what kind of life that we deserve. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money is the root of all evil. The world is a dangerous place. You can't trust people. I'll never be good enough for my parents. All men or all women are bad, etc., etc. Many of us unknowingly carry these limiting stories with us, forged from past life experiences or outdated ideas. These stories run in the background, subtly guiding our choices and preventing us from living up to our full potential. If you don't become the main character in your own story, you'll become an extra in someone else's, and they probably don't have much of a plot written for you. Rumi once wrote, "Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth." You might be familiar with the concept of the hero's journey. This is a universal story structure found in mythology, movies, literature throughout all of history. The hero's journey is one of calling to adventure, exploration into the unknown, and the eventual triumph over the challenges and the trials that they must face. The hero ultimately returns home transformed, with a wealth of new treasures and wisdom ready to share, now able to help their family and their community in greater ways than ever before. Think again of the phoenix being consumed by fire, going into the unknown and being transformed, and then coming back renewed. These myths and stories all tie together. Imagine our hero about to set out on a quest. Think about how important it would be for them to know what was at stake during their mission, to keep them focused and to help them take courage in times of hardship. That's what your anti-vision will become for you. For you to completely commit to your journey of growth and transformation, you need to know what's at stake. You need to understand that if you don't commit to this journey and see it through, this is what could happen instead. So start to see yourself as an adventurer in search of treasure. So start to see yourself as an adventurer in search of treasure, whether that treasure is in the form of self-knowledge and actualization, life experience, wisdom gained, connections made, love found, or money made. Become the hero of your own story. Let me tell you something. You may have failed at some things, but you are not a failure. You only really fail when you quit. And the fact that you're watching this video right now tells me that you are not a quitter. Even if you're in a bad place right now, even if you perceive yourself to be at rock bottom, things can always get worse. Hell is a bottomless pit. But things can also always get better. The staircase that leads upwards to better things is there for you to start climbing. And once you start climbing, no one can say how good things can get for you and what treasure you might bring back from the adventure of your life. Before we end this lesson, I want to share an excerpt from the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Upon having his money stolen by a thief, he was so ashamed that he wanted to cry. He had never even wept in front of his own sheep, but the marketplace was empty, and he was far from home, so he wept. He wept because God was unfair, and because this was the way God repaid those who believed in their dreams. When I had my sheep, I was happy, and I made those around me happy. People saw me coming and welcomed me, he thought. But now I'm sad and alone. I'm going to become bitter and distrustful of people because one person betrayed me. I'm going to hate those who have found their treasure because I never found mine. And I'm going to hold on to what little I have because I'm too insignificant to conquer the world. And then it goes on. This wasn't a strange place. It was a new one. After all, what he had always wanted was just that, to know new places. Even if he never got to the pyramids, he had already travelled farther than any shepherd he knew. Oh, if they only knew how different things are, just 2 hours by ship from where they are, he thought. Although this new world at the moment was just an empty marketplace, he had already seen it when it was teeming with life, and he would never forget it. He remembered the sword. It hurt him a bit to think about it, but he had never seen one like it before. As he mused about these things, he realized that he had to choose between thinking of himself as a poor victim of a thief and as an adventurer in search of his treasure. I'm an adventurer looking for treasure, he said to himself. Let's go back to our icon, an archetype of rebirth, resurrection and renewal, the phoenix. As the phoenix has been coming to the end of one of its many, many lives, it's been reflecting over its life and mapping out the highs and the lows, what led to those points and what he has and can learn from those things. He's looked at the parts of his life that he's satisfied with and other parts that could be improved, not in a self-critical way, but with a certain objectivity, like a mountaineer looking back over the peaks and valleys that they've travelled through. The phoenix then looked towards the future, looking through the lens of his clearly defined values. He decided what he will not settle for in his next life. Then he envisioned how bad his life could become if he did not stick to those self-defined values and stay within his self-defined lane. It's a vision that still scares him, and it should. But now, the phoenix is about to start going through the most catalyzing stages of his transformation. And he's starting to look to the future and think about all the good that he has the potential to become. Now is his chance to decide who he is going to be in his next life. Just as the phoenix is readying for his transformation, you too have the chance to decide who you will become. The life that you've lived so far is not a sealed book. It's a treasure map filled with clues that will inform you on your journey forward. Your experiences, your passions, your talents, the things that you're most curious about are all pieces of the puzzle that you can use to put together the image of your future. You are already standing atop a mountain of experience and value. Within your head, there is a wealth of resources waiting to be mined. At the 2005 Stanford commencement, Steve Jobs shared how his own curiosities and passions led in part to the creation of the Macintosh computer. He said that much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and my intuition turned out to be priceless later on. He continued with, "Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it became very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So you have to trust that somehow the dots will connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever." In the last lesson, I talked about you embodying the role as your own main character in your life. From this point forward, start to also see yourself as the author of your own life. It's time to start thinking about and asking yourself, what do you really want? I'm not talking about what you think you should do. I'm not talking about what you think someone else thinks that you should do. I'm talking about what you truly want. What would light you up? What would light a fire within you that is inextinguishable? I didn't mean what do you want in a hedonistic or impulsive way from some immediate gratification, pleasure-seeking perspective. I mean, what do you really want to get out of your life? Who do you want to become? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Coming from your own heart, your authentic self. What things are going to give you the most meaning and joy and give you lasting fulfillment if you do them? There is a really easy exercise that you can do that will help you to open your mind and think about what you truly want and what you should pursue. You simply start by asking yourself this question. In 3 to 5 years from now, if money was no object and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And who would you become? Take 5 to 10 minutes to write down as many things as possible that you would like to do. Once you've done that, you're going to go through each thing on your list and give it a rating between 1 and 10 on how exciting and meaningful that thing would be for you. 1 is not exciting or meaningful at all, and 10 is the most exciting and meaningful thing that you could ever do. Right, once you've done that, now you're going to go through your list again and give each thing a second rating. This time you are going to rate each thing by the level of belief that you could do it in the next 3 to 5 years. Again, rating it between 1 and 10. 1 being absolutely no chance at all, and 10 being absolutely without a doubt. So once you've done that, you will now have 2 scores for each thing on your list. And you're just going to go through and add up each score for each thing. So you'll have a final score for each item on your list. That final score on each of the desires on your list is a good indicator on whether or not that thing is something that you should pursue or not. The higher the number, the better it is. Maybe you should pursue that thing. If it's got a really low number, maybe you shouldn't pursue that thing. We all have interests that seem to call out to us, and sometimes it doesn't even feel like we choose them, but they choose us. When you watch a sport or a performance or a certain movie, or you just see someone doing something that they love and they're completely immersed within it, something within that thing jumps out to us and grabs hold of our attention and our curiosity, while the person next to us couldn't seem to care less. Yet that person has their own thing that captivates them, seemingly without their choosing. The key to finding what lights you up is out there in the world, but only through observing yourself will you see it. You'll see it in a moment when something has whisked you up and caught your true self, your full attention in its grasp, reflecting back to you the possibilities of your own untapped potential. King Solomon, the wisest man in the world, once wrote, "Without a vision, the people perish." And I think this is also true on a much more personal level. And you could say, when they have no vision, people perish, as their very first principle that defines their understanding of the world. Buddhists believe that life is suffering, and they identify the first 2 steps to overcoming this suffering as right view and right resolve. Right view means to see the world for the reality that it is, objectively, which they believe is suffering. And right resolve is about cultivating a positive outlook in the face of that suffering. You need to develop a positive outlook in order for you to overcome the suffering in the world. And a significant part of that positive outlook is developed by creating a positive vision of your own future. This isn't about naive, wishful thinking where you ignore the challenges and the hardships of the reality that we live in. It's actually about understanding that having a meaningful and inspiring vision for your life is necessary to function optimally in this world of suffering. The world is a ridiculously complex and overwhelming place, and if you don't have an aim to focus your attention, you'll likely be swallowed up by the ocean of chaos. There are simply too many things happening to be able to perceive and understand everything all at once. Without a clear vision of the life that is possible for you, filled with goodness and purpose, when you meet the devil at the crossroads, there's a good chance that you'll become distracted and mindlessly follow him into hell. Without a vision that lights you up and fills you with admiration for that future version of yourself, when things get dark, you'll find it much more difficult to find your way through that darkness. When you're in the depths of a dark tunnel, trying to find your way out, your vision will act as the light at the end of that tunnel, guiding your way. Your vision will become your guiding star, and when it's bright and well defined, you'll be able to tell it apart from all of the other countless billions of stars in the sky. You'll start to know your guiding star in relation to some of those other stars in the sky, and then each time you set your eyes above the horizon, you'll know if you're going in the right direction or not, even if you're thousands and thousands of miles away from your destination. The reality is, having a clear and well-defined vision for your life is more in touch with the world that we live in than any alternative, even if that vision seems miles away from where you currently are right now. We evolved to understand and perceive ourselves and the world through stories. And once you clarify a future vision for your life that you are aiming at and moving towards, everything in your life becomes a part of that narrative. Everything you do now has a significance, a meaning. Having a well-defined vision allows you to orient yourself properly in the world, and it allows you to effectively focus in on what's important. Like a photographer focusing in on their subject. They want to see a specific thing in their view clearly while blurring out less important things. When you have something that is important to you to aim at and to judge and compare yourself against, it will enable you to much more easily see those parts of yourself that are pulling you off course. So you can correct those faults and become unified and integrated, and then function much more optimally in the world. So, how do you go about creating this vision? Well, just as you did with your anti-vision, you'll start by revisiting your values hierarchy exercise that you did in stage 1 of the program, life mapping. Within each of the values that you define there, you are going to describe what a future heaven would look like for you in 5 years' time. Ask yourself these 3 questions for each of your values. 1. If I could be, do, and have all that I could be, and have those things be valuable and meaningful enough to help to sustain me through all the chaos and the suffering in the world and in life, what would that look like? 2. If I prioritized my personal growth, did the work to put myself together in the best way I possibly could, and stopped doing all the things that were holding me back, how good could my life get? And 3, how would doing this affect the people around me, and what kind of legacy would it leave? When writing these positive visions of different areas of your life, it's best to write it in the present or past tense. I do, I have, I am, etc. If there are some things that you are aiming to be, do, or have that you haven't already defined or don't come under any of the values that are in your value hierarchy, go ahead and write about that thing under its own heading and then go back and add that thing to your value hierarchy list in its proper place. Without a vision, people perish. But with a vision, people have the chance to grow and thrive. Imagine yourself parked up in your car, and in your hand you have a lottery ticket. And you're waiting for the page to load up on your phone so you can check the numbers. The jackpot is 150 million. And as you start to check the numbers against yours, one after another match up. You get to the last number and you realize that you've actually hit the jackpot. You literally cannot believe what is happening to you. How do you think you would feel in that moment? Excited, happy, joyful, to say the least? Even if just before this moment you were feeling down or stressed, this event would turn your mood around in an instant. What about a 6-year-old kid on Christmas Eve who is absolutely buzzing that tonight Santa is coming to his house to bring him the presents that he's asked for because he's been such a good kid all year? How amazing do you think he feels even though his presents aren't even under the tree yet? In both of these scenarios, the positive emotion is actually happening before the event that they were anticipating. Whether or not you have a winning lottery ticket in your hand, the money still isn't in your bank yet. That surge of excitement, that joy, that is the power of anticipation. It's a powerful motivating force that fills you with positive emotion and can energize you out of a low in an instant. Picture this. There is a man lost in the desert. He's had no food for nearly a week, and yesterday he ran out of water. His energy levels are depleted. He staggers slowly through the sand, and he's just about ready to give up and accept his death. But just then, he comes over the top of a dune and sees an oasis with palm trees and clear water. Instantly, he gets a burst of energy out of nowhere, and he runs towards the water and dives in. But was the oasis real? Or was it just a mirage? This is where things can get interesting. Have you ever heard of gold medal syndrome? Gold medal syndrome is a phenomenon that elite athletes can experience after finally achieving a gold medal, like at the Olympics. They trained for years for it, sometimes their entire lives. Motivation, dedication, anticipation. And once they achieve it, somehow it can leave them feeling disappointed, depressed, lonely, with low self-esteem and a loss of self-worth. Surely this doesn't make sense. They've just won an Olympic gold medal. They should be on top of the world. But no, instead they feel empty inside. The anticipation of something pleasurable or meaningful triggers the release of dopamine in our brains, which is the motivation and reward hormone. This surge of dopamine makes us feel happy, energized, and focused on achieving the desired outcome. The bigger and more pleasurable that we perceive the desired outcome to be, the more dopamine that is released. Once we get what we want, our brains work to reset. Dr. Anna Lemke, in her book Dopamine Nation, wrote, "Our brains evolved to bring us back to neutrality. This means that the highs can only be as high as the lows are low. Once a highly anticipated and sought-after goal is achieved, dopamine levels will drop way below normal, restoring the balance, but making us feel miserable. This explains gold medal syndrome. There was a study conducted where scientists stopped rats from being able to produce dopamine in their brains. The rats lost all motivation to do anything. They didn't even eat, and they ended up almost starving to death. You need anticipation and dopamine to live and thrive. It makes you feel motivation to get up and do things. And when you feel motivated, you feel great. Positive emotion caused by dopamine release is not only created in anticipation of a reward though. When you make progress towards that desired outcome, your brain also releases dopamine, rewarding you for your effort. Imagine a rat having to go through a maze to get some food that it knows is at the other end. But once it enters the maze, it can no longer see the food that it knows is there. The anticipation that the rat felt when it first saw the food would start to wear off, and after a while, the rat would start to become uninterested and end up abandoning the pursuit. But the rat needs to eat to survive. So as the rat makes progress through the maze, its brain releases more dopamine to keep it focused and motivated enough to endure the journey. Our brains release dopamine in anticipation of and for making progress toward desired outcomes. Our brains need to do this for us to feel motivated to pursue things, because for us to stay alive, we have to pursue things. So how do we achieve the balance between the positive emotions of anticipation and progress while avoiding the post-achievement crash? The key to this lies in crafting a compelling vision under meaningful values that will provide us with an ongoing journey of growth and purpose. When you write a clear vision of the highest future that you can conceptualize, it will offer a continuous source of positive motivation and progress-based rewards of feel-good emotions. Instead of only defining a single or set of goals to achieve, which will set you up for emotional emptiness once you achieve them, you defined your most important values and you created a meaningful vision within each of those values. So what you're aiming at and anticipating isn't just a single or set of objects or outcomes. It's actually a journey of growth and becoming your best self. It's a way of life that will continually challenge, inspire, and uplift you. Don't worry though, you will still achieve those specific things that you desire along the way, but you won't have that post-achievement crash afterwards. You'll just see it as part of the fruitful harvest of doing your best, making progress, and a life well lived. Imagine 3 stonemasons working on an ancient construction site. A passerby asks each one, "What are you doing?" The first mason grumbles, "I'm cutting stones." The second replies, "I'm earning a wage to support my family." The third mason stops, looks up with a gleam in his eye, and declares, "I am building a cathedral." Which stonemason do you think feels most fulfilled by their work? Have you ever felt like the tasks that you routinely perform, whether at work or at home, become a bit of a grind? There are those tasks that you just have to do that you don't get any kind of inherent enjoyment out of. Imagine taking just a big chunk of stone and chiseling away at that stone with simple hand tools. It would probably take hundreds of strikes with the hammer and chisel just to make one block. And then you're on to the next piece of stone, chiseling away to make a block. And you do that all day, 5 days a week or whatever it is. You can see how that ridiculously repetitive task would become boring as hell and would start to feel pointless. Like those first 2 stonemasons. The first one is completely wrapped up in the day-to-day drudgery of his task. And the second, making a living for his family, a noble pursuit, but really just focused on getting by. There's no spark there, nothing that gives them that look of passion in their eyes, no connection to the bigger picture. And when that happens, even small tasks can start to feel like heavy burdens. Meanwhile, the third stonemason, he isn't just cutting blocks, nor is he just getting by. He is building a cathedral for the glorification of God. While their immediate tasks are the same, it's their perspective that changes everything. Let's break this down. Think of your life as a set of boxes. Each task, cutting stones, writing emails, doing the dishes, sits inside its own individual box. But there are larger boxes containing many tasks, or even larger ones again encompassing your entire career or aspects of your life. We call this concept levels of abstraction. Low level means the immediate task, cutting stone or answering an email. Medium level focuses on practical outcomes like earning a wage or finishing a project. And the high level is where your deep purpose, vision and values live, like building a cathedral, contributing to your community, or creating a loving home. When we only focus on the smallest boxes, the immediate tasks, we will naturally become bored. Our brains are craving deeper context. It's like trying to understand a single puzzle piece without being able to see the whole picture that it creates. But by connecting your everyday actions to that highest level of abstraction, that broader and deeper vision, you can unlock a sense of meaning, joy, and fulfillment, even in the smallest, seemingly insignificant tasks. Think back to that third stonemason. His vision, building a place of worship, transformed even the most tedious task into an act of devotion and love. You might not be building a cathedral, but the same principle applies in your own life. When you carefully craft a vision that captures your most loved and important passions all the way up to the highest level of abstraction, it will serve the same purpose for you. When you can see the mundane tasks in your life as stepping stones towards and the building blocks that make up that vision, something remarkable can happen. Doing your laundry isn't just a chore, it's part of creating a comfortable and mindful home. So maybe you could feel a sense of enjoyment and mindfulness while you're doing it. Answering emails isn't just drudgery, it's an integral part of the company, which provides powerful solutions to important and impactful causes that you actually really care about. Stacking shelves isn't just a mindless task, it's a valuable part of what helps our communities function. And besides, it's paying for your driving lessons so you can go on road trips with your friends and expand your horizons, so you can be a better parent to your children later on. And you might even meet someone while you're on the trip. It's a simple tweak in your mindset, but the difference in your state will be profound. You want to be happier, more joyful, and find more meaning in your days, don't you? By doing this, you'll be the one with the gleam in your eye, maybe even when you're doing the dishes. When you're performing these small, mundane tasks, keep in mind that vision. When you're performing these small, mundane tasks, keep in mind your vision and your values for your life, and realize that every single strike of the hammer, every block that you cut helps to build and maintain that vision and the values that you love. This may sound weird, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who has done this. Have you ever looked at your own eyes closely in the mirror and then realized that you can only focus on one eye at a time? As soon as you look from one eye to the other, they've already stopped. You don't see them move. Your eyes move so fast that you don't ever see them move. Well, at least mine do. Most of the time, our eyes are playing an all or nothing game. We're focused entirely on one thing, and then we're not, because we're focused entirely on the next thing. Our eyes dart around all over the place, but they're always focusing on one specific thing at a time. You can try to do this, but I find it impossible to smoothly scroll my eyes from left to right or up and down without my visual focus jumping from one specific thing to the next. Unless you are focused on something that is moving smoothly past you like a football or a car, our visual fields cover roughly 190 degrees from left to right, which means that technically we can see a tiny bit behind us on both sides, 5% on the left and 5% on the right. But here is something crazy. Only 2 degrees of that full 190 degrees that you can see is what is called your central foveal vision, which is where your highest resolution sight is. If you hold your thumb out at arm's length in front of you, roughly the size of your thumbnail is the size of your most detailed vision. Everything else outside of that rapidly becomes much lower resolution. It's not just about our sight though. A significant portion of our brains is dedicated to visual processing, which means that a large part of our conscious processing developed to focus on one thing or one area at a time. Think of our ancestors surviving in a world full of insecurity and vulnerability. Focused attention was more than an advantage. It was essential. This intense focus on a singular task allowed them to hunt, gather, and defend themselves effectively. We've inherited that same ability. Our brains are wired to be goal-oriented. It's also crucial for planning, decision-making, and learning new things. When we are trying to process too many things at once, our brains literally can't keep up and we become overwhelmed. We procrastinate because there are too many options. Or when we do take action, we make little progress because we can't focus on one thing for long enough. We haven't prioritized our aims enough to give us that intense focus that we need to make those real shifts that we're seeking occur. Imagine your focus like a battery, which every 90 days gets filled up with 100% charge of energy. And there are 10 different things or areas in your life that you use this energy up on. For ease, let's say that you use up 10% of your focus energy on each different thing in your life. But let's face it, in reality, you probably waste a good amount of that energy too. At the end of the 90 days, you've made a little progress in some areas, but no breakthroughs. You look around and nothing has really changed. But let's say the next time your battery gets charged up, you decide to put 80% of all of your focus energy into just one thing, and you use the other 20% just to maintain the other areas. What do you think will happen in that one area of your life where you've dedicated 80% of your energy to it for 90 days? You'd get to the end of that period and the results would be undeniable. You would have made more progress in those 90 days than you have in years. Or let's say you have an electric car, it's fully charged and you want to take a road trip to paradise. But instead of driving just in one direction using all your energy, you use up the battery power because you have to go to all these different places all around town, and then you don't get very far in the end. So you go home and charge the car up again, but this time you decide to put all of your battery power into one long drive in one singular direction. Obviously, you're going to get a lot further this time than taking short drives going backwards and forwards. Think of the positive vision that you have for your life. All of the parts that you've envisioned that represent your ideal future. Trying to focus on everything in your vision all at once is like scattering your battery power all over the place. Yes, you'll maintain some things and make some progress, but the true transformations that you want just won't happen. Instead, you need to prioritize your aims and choose just one or a few core things from your vision as your focus. Like the car putting all its power into going in one direction, you will direct the majority of your energy, that battery power, toward those few priority things. So start looking through your vision and start picking out those things that would be most beneficial, meaningful, challenging, and impactful in your life? What is that one thing or a couple of things that is going to move the needle the most in the short to medium term future? These priority aims is what we're going to be working with as we move into stage 3 of the Phoenix 90 in a few days. This focused energy isn't about ignoring those other parts of your life. Just like our ancestors still needed to gather food while they were on the hunt. It's about recognizing the immense power that you can unleash when you channel the bulk of your energy towards what will make the most significant change. This is the first step in actually starting to move closer to that paradise vision that you've created. When we were kids, we thought we could be anything that we wanted when we grew up. We believed we could be an astronaut, a rock star, an athlete, or even a dinosaur. Possibilities were endless. There was an infinite amount of paths that we could take, and we wanted to explore them all. Those of us who still embrace our childlike nature, those who embrace their inquisitiveness and their curiosity, and often feel a certain tension. Those endless possibilities eventually bump up against the realities of adult life. There's only so much time and only so much energy. Staying young is a wonderful way to be. Think of the problem-free philosophy of Hakuna Matata. Just imagine no worries for the rest of your days. No pressure, no responsibility, just endless fun. What about Peter Pan in Neverland? A world of carefree adventures and limitless possibilities. Whatever you can imagine can happen, and where you never age. It's an attractive fantasy, isn't it? But let's be honest, sometimes our modern world and the way we live our lives is a lot like Neverland. Most people in our culture have access to pretty much whatever they want, whenever they want. If you can imagine it, it's already available. There are literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of hours of entertainment to watch at any time. There are dozens of different restaurants that will bring you whatever food that you want in minutes. There are millions of porn sites just a couple of clicks away, and dating apps where you can meet with someone you've never met, sleep with them, and then go your separate ways an hour later. Drugs and alcohol are available everywhere you turn. And don't forget an obsession with staying and looking young and youthful that drives billion-dollar industries. So maybe the fantasy isn't so much of a fantasy after all. Just like in Neverland though, this fantasy of endless pleasure comes with a hidden cost. Peter Pan, for all of his adventures, remains a lonely, lost boy at heart, incapable of true connection or meaningful growth. Peter Pan is scared of growing up, of maturing, of taking responsibility. He's scared of the adult world and the real dangers and opportunities that it holds. He's scared to lose his feelings of endless possibilities. On some level, I think we can all relate. Change is scary, and embracing responsibility for our own lives can be daunting. But the most fulfilling life journeys involve overcoming these fears. Peter Pan learns that what he really should be scared of and the real danger is staying immature. He sought escape from the hardships of growing up, but ultimately trapped himself in a different, more insidious kind of hardship. Staying in Neverland means experiencing a lack of purpose. Without goals, life can feel empty and meaningless. It means lost potential. Without the challenges that lead to growth, you'll never know what you're truly capable of. It means settling for superficiality. Without deeper connection to others and our own inner development, experiences remain hollow. And it means holding on to who you could be, but never becoming who you are meant to be. While as children we have near infinite possibilities, as we grow up and mature, we need to let go of everything that we could be so we can actually become something. When you are a kid, you are full of potential. You could be or do anything, but you aren't actually anything yet. You have the potential to become, but you haven't gone through the process of actually becoming. Some of us still carry this desire to be everything into our adult lives. Maybe we're trying to protect ourselves or keep our inner child safe in some way. Maybe we've been forced to grow up by the world and our situations, but we need to make a decision to do it willingly. A huge part of this willingness to mature is about sacrificing everything that you could be in order to actually become something. When we willingly enter and commit to a long-term relationship, we sacrifice all the other possible relationships that we could be in. When we decide to commit and master our chosen line of work or business, we forgo our ability to go into all the other endless avenues of work. When we choose to live in one house, in one place, we sacrifice all the other options of where we could live. Think of a sculptor standing before a massive, unformed block of marble. It holds the potential for an infinite number of sculptures, a dancing figure, a majestic lion, an abstract masterpiece. But to reveal any of these forms, the sculptor must start to chip away. With each strike of the chisel, they eliminate possibilities and sacrifice material. You could see this like a loss. The sculptor is throwing away so much of the stone like it's a waste of material. But you don't see it like that, because you know what is going to be created is going to be something beautiful, and it's going to be better than how it began. The same is true for us. Sacrifice isn't about loss or losing something wanted. It's about gaining something wanted, and about making space for something that is ultimately much more valuable to develop. The process is both destructive and creative, just like the universe. The sculptor destroys the raw form of the marble to make way for something new. Similarly, we need to sacrifice old habits, outdated mindsets, or relationships that hold us back. It can feel painful, but it makes space for positive transformation. Sculptor keeps working even when the form isn't immediately clear. Your vision might not even be completely clear right now, but as you continue on your journey through the stages of the transformation, more and more clarity will emerge. Van Gogh said, "I dream my painting and then I paint my dream." They don't just randomly chip away. Each cut is deliberate, driven by the image in their mind. Keep your vision in mind as we move into the next stage of the program, identity shaping.